Do you consider this a fancy cheese? Because in my world, we consider it a fancy cheese. You'll sometimes see it at a special occasion or maybe during the holidays, but it's pretty rare to stumble upon this cheese. So when I saw on Instagram, there was a lady who was showing you how to make a copycat version of it. I tried it, it was delicious, and I wanted to share a review of the recipe. These are all the ingredients that you need. One of the things that makes this recipe great is the simple type of ingredients that you can use. All of these are pretty easy for us to find here in the United States. So first you have your cream cheese and butter. The cream cheese and the butter sat out on the counter for a few hours so they can come to room temperature. I don't know about you, but I hate trying to wrestle around room temperature cream cheese. It's so annoying. I've tried this recipe a few times and it comes out great. So I knew that I wanted to double the recipe. That way I could put some of the cheese in the freezer. So I have 2 bricks of room temperature cream cheese and 1 stick of butter. They're all going to go in the food processor, or they're going to get whipped together so they become light and airy. Since I'm making a double recipe, it's a little bit crowded in the food processor. I think next time if I make a double recipe, I'll cut the butter up into smaller chunks. You can still see a large part of it hasn't been processed. I'm pulsing the mixture together for about 30 seconds, then I'm stopping, scraping down the sides, and doing it again. I'm going to keep doing it until I have a mixture that is light and fluffy. Last year, I was at a family party and my brother and sister-in-law brought this cheese. I hadn't seen this cheese in years, and having it at the party reminded me of how good this cheese was. I went to the store to go buy some, and then I looked at the price, and then I remembered why I never have it. Here, this is between probably $4.50, which is a good price, up to $6 at a local grocery store. And that's just out of my budget. So when I ran across this recipe on Live, Eat, Learn, I was so excited to try it out. So for this part, you're going to need dried parsley, dried chives, garlic powder, salt, white pepper, and white vinegar. I was really concentrating when I poured that in there. I didn't know if I was going to spill it. You're going to blend it again until it's all incorporated. Even though all those spices would be considered pantry staples by many people, I didn't have any of those spices. I don't normally cook with them. So I purchased them just to try them for this recipe, and I'm happy to say it was worth it. Except for the garlic powder. I cook with lots of garlic powder. Now, this time when I was making the recipe, I accidentally added twice the amount of the chives and the parsley. I don't think that it had any negative effect on the recipe. So what that tells me about this recipe is it's probably pretty flexible. So the next time I make it, maybe I'll try to add some different spices or maybe even some fresh herbs. One of the other amazing things about this recipe is it's freezable. And so that means that I can make a whole bunch of them and put them in the freezer for later use. So I guess in the future, if I try a different version of the recipe, I won't put in fresh herbs if I intend to freeze them. That might mess up the texture. But the texture after defrosting is just as good as the original. I'm using this measuring cup as a mold. It will give me a round, disc, or cylindrical shape like the original. It's a little bit flatter and wider than the original one, but you could roll it in your hands if you wanted to take on a different shape. All of these are going to go in the fridge and probably make their way into the freezer later on. I'm going to take one of them and bring them to my brother and sister-in-law's house tonight. That way they can get a chance to try this copycat version. I know how much they like the cheese, and I think they would really appreciate how easy it is and how affordable it is compared to the other one. So this is the original cheese. And you can see its shape. It's a little bit more, I guess, narrow. And then this one is one that I made last week, and I put it in the freezer for a few days. I took it out last night and let it defrost, and I want to do a taste test and see if they're similar. I also haven't tried it after being frozen, so I want to make sure that it actually is good after being frozen. So by looking at them, they look identical except for the shape. And I have my toasted bread that I'm going to start with the original Boursin, and it has a creamy, spreadable consistency. It tastes delicious. And then I'm going to try the homemade version. This one also has the same type of spreadability. It doesn't have any of the graininess that you might get after freezing certain things, and it tastes identical. So now for the 6 questions I ask about everything I make. The first one is, how does it taste? This is delicious. It's dangerously delicious. The question after that is it easy? And yeah, it's really easy. Followed by, is it quick? Yes, it's very quick. You saw how quickly that all came together in the food processor. The next thing I ask is, can I freeze it? And yes, you can. It didn't affect the taste or the texture at all. Then I ask myself, can I make it in bulk to save time? And yes, I doubled the recipe and I made 4 of these. And the last question that I have is, how much did it cost? After tallying up all the ingredients, it was $4.50 for 4 portions of this. So it's a quarter of the price that you would find it at the grocery store. If you try this, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I just want to say a big thank you to the lady at Live, Eat, Learn for sharing this recipe with us.